everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my October reading wrap-up. So in October I read 4 books, I read 3 graphic novels, and I also read half of a book and I finished half of a book. So yeah, when you write it out like that, I feel like October wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So the first book that I read in October was Escaping from Houdini by Kerri Maniscalco. Technically I finished it in November, but I read the majority of it in October, so I'm going to count it, especially since we're at the beginning of November. This was our Muggle Studies Book Club pick for October, and I will leave a link to our live show down below. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, which to be honest kind of shocked me. I absolutely loved the first 2 books. If you don't know, this is the 3rd book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper. It's gonna be a 4-book series, so a saga or a quartet, not sure what it's gonna be called. And I had high expectations for this book because I believe I rated Jack the Ripper 5 out of 5 stars and Hunting Prince Dracula 5 out of 5 stars. So I was expecting to just fly through this book and just really enjoy it. And I did really enjoy it. Like the sass and the banter and the wit that we got between Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell, that part I absolutely loved. Kerri Maniscalco's writing, I absolutely loved. She's got great quotes in here that I highlighted. I had a trouble with the plot. So we are on a ship on our way to America, and a whole bunch of murders start happening on the ship. And then there's also a carnival. So the premise sounds really interesting. The problem was that I feel like the science and all of the forensics part that I absolutely loved in the first 2 books, we didn't get a lot in this one, and this book was just mainly romantic drama and not in a good way. We get introduced to a really terrible love triangle, which was just so unnecessary, and just what was the point of introducing a really terrible love triangle in the second to last book. So I didn't like that. I did enjoy the characters though. We got introduced to a new character, like the ringmaster of the carnival. I really enjoyed him. He was really mysterious, and he was a great character. Also, I love Thomas Cresswell, but I feel like we didn't get a lot of Thomas. He kind of disappears throughout a lot of the book, so that part was a little disappointing. I wish we had more of like that pair of Audrey and Rose and Thomas, so that was a little disappointing. But all in all, I mean, it was still a pretty good book. I mean, a 4 out of 5 stars is a pretty good rating, I think, in my opinion. So I do recommend reading it. Like, if you enjoyed the first 2 books and you do want to finish the series, I do recommend reading it because there are still some amazing moments in this book that just is so good. Just great quotes and great character banter. And I think that we have some of the most humorous scenes in this book versus the first 2. I found myself laughing out loud so many times, especially if it was like a Thomas quote. He was just hilarious. Also, the writing pace was just a little off. Like, we would have a murder take place within maybe 2 paragraphs were done with that scene, and then we had a 2 to 3 chapter long scene of angsty romance and love triangle. And it's like, where's all the science part that I absolutely love so much? So yeah, that's my kind of little gripe on that, but I did enjoy it. So I do highly recommend reading it. I think it is worth reading. Just keep those couple things in mind because it is still a really good book. Next, I finished Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I have been rereading Harry Potter and listening to the audiobooks while following along in the illustrated edition. So I started the Sorcerer's Stone back in September, and then I finished it in October. And to continue on with Harry Potter, I also read or listened to The Chamber of Secrets. Now, I wasn't able to follow along while listening to the audiobook because I was listening to the audiobook when I went to New York, so I didn't bring my massive illustrated edition. But when I got back, I did kind of go through the illustrated edition once the book was like still fresh in my mind. And then also I read Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, or I listened to and followed along with the illustrated edition. So I'm so sad that it stops at the third one because I want to be able to follow along for the rest of the other books. And of course, I gave all 3 of these books 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I listened to the audiobook Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. I absolutely loved it. I don't read a lot of biographies or autobiographies and nonfiction, but I just have been hearing so many things about Talking as Fast as I Can, and she does her audiobook. So that part I absolutely loved. And I've kind of been on a Gilmore Girls kick recently, so I decided to pick it up and listen to it, and it was so, so good. I really, really loved it. I think I gave it like a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 stars. It was really, really good. If you are a big fan of Gilmore Girls and you love Lauren Graham, then I highly recommend picking it up. It's a really, really quick audiobook. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. Really short. So if you're able to listen at, 1.5 speed or something, you're just gonna get through it really quickly, and it's wonderful. Next, I read a manga, and that was Tokyo Ghoul by Sui Ishida. I am so sorry. I know I probably am saying that very, very, very wrong. It's really interesting. I think I gave it a 4 or 4.5 out of 5 stars. So we follow our main character, Ken. He is a college student, and he goes on a date with a girl who turns out to be a ghoul, and she tries to attack him, but something happens, an accident happens, she ends up dying, and he gets badly hurt. So when he's at the hospital, they take the organs of the ghoul and they put it inside of Ken. He ends up turning into a half human, half ghoul, and it's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It is dark, it is really bloody, and it is violent, so kind of keep that in mind. Next, I read another graphic novel, and that was Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, and this is a collection of 5 short stories set around like spooky horror, like Halloween time, and I really, really enjoy these short stories. The illustrations are so vibrant and beautiful and captivating, and they're so good and really spooky too. I think this is my 3rd time reading this graphic novel, and I've enjoyed it each time. It's like the perfect graphic novel to read around Halloween if you want something a little spooky, a little horror, but it's not too horror. Like, I don't do anything scary, and I'm able to get through it. So it's not like super, super scary, but it is really enjoyable, especially with all of the like gorgeous illustrations. Next, I read the first 3 volumes in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and this was published by Archie Comics, which makes sense because when I also watched the Netflix show, that's kind of how I started reading the comic, is because I watched the Netflix show and I really enjoyed it, and it kept giving me a Riverdale vibe, and Riverdale is based off of the Archie comic books. Now I understand why I got a Riverdale vibe from the Netflix show, even though they're like, Netflix does the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and then I believe the CW does Riverdale. But I really enjoyed the graphic novel. It's spooky, it's a interesting dark twist on Sabrina the Teenage Witch. The last book I want to talk about, I didn't finish it, but I did read a good chunk of it, and that was Empire of Storm by Sarah J. Maas. This is the fifth book, yes, 5th book in the Throne of Glass series, and I am kind of rereading it because it's been 2 years 2 years? Yeah, has it been 2 years since I read Empire Storm? And then Kingdom of Ash just came out and I wanted to go back and kind of refresh my memory of Empire of Storms. So I just went through the first 500 pages and I was just kind of skimming through it. Like I didn't read every single word. So I am currently on page 532. So I'm almost done with going through it. I think the last 100 or so pages, I'm going to spend a little bit more time reading it because this is where things get really intense. We get into more explanations of like everything that's happening with like the magic and just all the characters, and it comes together at the end. And it kind of builds up for Kingdom of Ash, so I want to go back and just make sure that I haven't missed anything so that I'm not confused in Kingdom of Ash. So I didn't technically finish this book in October, but I mean, I roughly skimmed 530 pages. So I decided to add it to my October reading wrap up. So that's pretty much it for this video. I know it's kind of long because I went on a little Escaping from Houdini rant. I'm hoping that I will kind of pick up the pace and do better in November because I was slacking in videos in October and I was kind of slacking towards the end here in reading. That is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know some of the books that you read in October and let me know if you enjoyed any of the ones that I've read, and I will see you next time in another video. Bye!